Hey everyone, Zach here with GP PsychWorks, and today we're going to show you how to drill and install a hardware mounted windshield. Marking and drilling the holes is crucial to get the alignment correct with your metal brackets. So let's dig into it and we'll show you how we do it here. Okay, so drilling and installing the windshield is a 4-step process. The first step is to take pictures and document the current setup of your hardware and then remove the hardware. Step 2 is going to be mark the holes, and if you've got a special way, we'll show you how we do that. The third step is to actually drill the new windshield with an acrylic drill bit. And the fourth step is reassembling and putting everything back together. So first off, we're going to document the hardware that we have and the way it's configured, because it can be a little tricky putting it all back together once it's disassembled. So we'll take pictures of what we have, and then we will start removing the hardware. For this specific setup, we've got a 10mm ratchet and a Phillips head screwdriver. And the other tool we're going to use is some kind of box just to prop the screen up on, because sometimes it can be a little tricky removing the hardware and holding the screen. If you have a second person, that can also really help out just for holding things up while you're moving it. So let's get started on the disassembly. Put the ratchet on the back. And when you're taking off the hardware, try to put them in order of the way you take them off, because normally where the hardware overlaps, you'll have longer bolts. So you just want to make sure that you keep the longer bolts in the right spot. So now this whole bracket is free and everything's going to want to wiggle quite a bit. So this is when it's important to have the screen propped up and to try to keep everything straight. This specific windshield also has these metal collars that go in between the metal brackets to help prevent over tightening of the metal bolts and cracking of your acrylic windshield. It's important to keep a clean work area. In case you drop anything, you'll be able to find it, like the spacer that just rolled off the table. So there you have it. Everything's disassembled. We'll kind of go ahead and organize and put it all back together so we can keep it all straight. The next and most important step is actually marking the holes. We're going to mark the holes in 2 different ways, with one windshield on one side and then flip it around and mark the holes on the other side also. It's a little confusing, so we'll show you how we do it. The main reason we do this is to compensate for any offset when you're transferring holes from one windshield to another. So we've got our main tool we're going to use is a permanent marker. You can also use some clamps if you want to help hold it together. The third optional item is, if you're worried about scratching your new windshield, you can also lay a bag, which won't add any offset but will help protect in between the windshields. We've done this a few times, so we're very careful about not scratching the windshield. So for this demonstration, we're not going to worry about the bag. We'll just show you how we do it. So the best thing to do is get this settled, lined up nicely, take your new windshield, and then lay it gently over the old one. The main time scratches occur is if you're applying pressure and moving the windshield around, so we're just going to really let it sit and then fine tune it. The main alignment point we want to align are any cutouts over the headlight. This specific one has 2 headlight cutouts, so we'll make sure that there's clearance there, and then we pretty much want to make sure that our spacing is about the same everywhere around the windshield. So I think we're about good there. And if you need to, you can clamp it here to help hold it together, but this one's sitting so nice that we're not going to worry about clamping it. Then you actually mark the holes. So we'll go over and we'll mark the exact center point going perpendicular to the windshield of each hole. So we'll start with our center one and just do a dot on the center point. And then same thing, you want to stay perpendicular, so we'll do a dot. The most important thing is to mark the exact center of the hole, even if it's slotted. Sometimes the manufacturers will slot the holes just to account for variance in their manufacturing process. You typically do not have to do that, but we can show you how to slot them if you need to. So then once we have this side all marked, check that all your holes are good before flipping them around, and then we'll take our new windshield over here and we'll swap them. Put this one on the bottom and then lay our old windshield over top. The main alignment point that we're going to use is sometimes there's one or two holes in the center. So we'll line up that center hole perfectly over the mark that you already made. And then from there, we will align the windshield. So you can see here my marks are a little above the holes, and here the marks are a little below. So I just need to twist the windshield ever so slightly so that the spacing is about right on all of them. And that looks right there. Everything looks good. The headlight cutout looks good. So then we will mark our holes again from this side through the old windshield that's on top now. The center hole should be exact center, so we're not going to worry about marking that one. This one will mark the exact center. As you get further down, the holes will be a little more offset because of the curves of the windshields. So then we can remove our old one, and here's going to be what it looks like. We've got our one center hole, and then on our other holes we're going to have two marks. As the holes get further to the edge of the windshield, the marks are actually going to be further away, and we'll drill directly in between the two holes, and that should be center of where our hardware will hit. Now that the holes are marked, the next step is to actually drill them out. For this specific windshield, we're going to use a 7/16 acrylic drill bit that is included with the windshield. The methodology we like to use is high speed, low pressure, because it is acrylic, so it can crack if too much pressure is applied. So that's why we're just having the windshield sit on the table. I guess the other important note is that we're going to drill exactly in between our two hole marks. So high speed, low pressure. So you notice it takes a long time. You really want each hole to take as long as possible, because that means you're not pushing too hard on it. So once again, I'll line up exactly in between my two marks. And this is how you get a really clean hole with drilling with no chips or bust outs on the back side. If you do get any chips, that normally occur on the back side from pushing, having too much pressure and pushing through the windshield. Another option you can do if you get that is to actually sand those out with a cone-shaped sandstone, and that way it will relieve any pressure from that crack when you're tightening the metal bolts. And now that the holes are all drilled, you can clean up any holes. If you've got, we'll clean off the windshield, and then we will assemble the hardware back on it. All right, now that the holes are drilled, everything's cleaned up a little bit, let's get our baby back together so we can get on the road again. The first thing we're gonna have to do is prop up our windshield a little bit just to give us a little more clearance. So we've got some 2x4s ready to go here, but it looks like it'll scratch. So then we've got a nice microfiber piece to put down, and then that way we can get to all of our holes. This one's probably the trickiest example we could think of because it's got your backer metal bracket. It's got a nice little rubber seal. Not really necessary, but we'll go ahead and put it back because that's how it was OEM. It's got a nice metal spacer that goes in between the two brackets. And then it's got our top plate, which also has some rubber seal on it. And then of course the nuts and bolts. So we're going to try to do this with just one set of hands. It's definitely recommended if you have a friend who's just watching you that they can also help out and do it. In general, the main methodology we're going to use is we start with our center bracket, get that one set up, and then we'll jump to one side and get that set up, and then we can kind of jump back and finish off that other side too. So let's start with our backer rod. The center rod in the back, you can see the rubber's a little distorted already just from being aged. So we'll get this lined up in the middle. We'll get our top bracket ready, our spacer, our nut, and our bolts here. Make sure the hole's lined up. Our spacer, put the top bracket in the spot. Of course, our block is right in the way, but this is just momentarily tricky. And the main thing we want to do is just get the bolts started so that it holds the hardware in place. We don't necessarily want to tighten anything down until we're set to tighten everything down. Okay, so that's just nice and tight, and then we'll go to this side, get these holes lined up. This is where we've got our backer rod, backer metal bracket, the rubber piece that goes over it, top plate here. That looks nicer. All right, it's tightened enough so that it won't go anywhere, and that'll make the rest of this side a little easier to do. So we got spacer, top plate, nut, bolts, nuts. Okay. And then where the brackets are overlapped is normally where the longer bolts are. So that's why it's important that we keep the order of those correct. Okay, then we've got the last one here. And you should have a little play in the hardware, so you might have to tilt the windshield or pull the bracket over a little bit just to reach. All right, so we got one side done. We'll jump over to the other side. All right, so we're just finishing up and making sure all of our bolts are finger tight once again, and just a little quarter turn after that. You do not need them that tight when you've got this many screws, this many bolts holding it. You do not have to over tighten it, because once again, over tightening is where you're going to introduce any kind of cracks. So everything's finger tight, and then we've got our windshield with our brackets reassembled, and we are ready to go riding again. All right, so now we are all finished, ready to go. A lot of the brackets are nice, quick assembly back on the bike. Normally you just slide them in place or a few bolts on the side. And yeah, that's how we mark and drill our hardware mounted windshields in the shop. There's lots of different ways to do it. That's our preferred method. As you can see, it's pretty flawless and easy to go. There's lots of different optional things you can use, ranging from different size of drill bits, or you can use sandstones to widen the holes. You can deburr the edges if you want. And concerning the hardware, you don't have to use the exact hardware that was used in this video. This is just an example of how it was original. We were just putting it back original. This is also a service that we can do. If you want to send us your windshield and hardware like this customer, we can transfer everything over for you. If there are any other questions, definitely let us know. Comment below, shoot us an email, give us a call, any of the normal methods to get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to take care of you. Safe riding, and we'll talk to you soon.